Welcome to I Said What I Said, a sports podcast giving you opinions not heard anywhere else. I'm your host, Brad Wakai, alongside my co-host, Tyson Gentry. Tyson, Merry Christmas to you. I hope it was great to you, and I hope your family had a great time as well. We haven't talked since the holiday, but I hope it was good to you.
No, we skipped the Christmas. We could skip being cordial and went straight to going at the birds. That's what we did on Christmas. But yeah, same to you and yours. It's nice. This is the first year I went and got a cut, so I didn't resemble Santa at the Christmas dinner.
Well, you got a few more years until it turns white, so I think you're
Oh man,
safe
I
a
got
little
the gut
longer.
for it. I tell you that.
Well, the problem is like the drinking and the excessive eating doesn't help around the holidays too. I think that's what the deal is.
No, I went light this year. I just only had a couple breakfasts and a couple lunches, and then just a few dinners.
All right. Well, that's better than 5 lunches, breakfasts, and dinners. So there you go. But Merry Christmas, everybody out there. Happy holidays, Hanukkah, whatever other kind of things are happening holiday wise. And we hope everybody had a great time and Happy New Year to everybody. We'll talk to you before then. We want to give everybody a great shout out as we get closer to that time because it's just been a great year for us. But Tyson, we got a lot to get to, so we're not going to waste any time here. NFL Week 16 recap because it was a big week. Games were spread out. It felt like everything was more magnified because you got your Thursday, you got your Saturday, you got your Sunday, and you got your Monday. So we got tons of games, tons of standalones. Everybody's got opinions, so we got to dive into things. So where do you stand before we dive into a bunch of different things? Where do you stand right now where we're at?
I just maybe there's maybe there's a little bit of overreaction going on today because of the fact that the games are so spread out. It almost felt a little bit like the opening weekend of the playoffs because it was like,
Mm.
okay, this is the only game on right now for the most part, and then after that, I'm going to freak out about that, and then it's going to all go out of my brain. I mean, there's some pretty good football teams in the league this year, Brad, and it might not have looked at like it all the time this week.
Yeah, and I think some takeaways here too. There's some teams I think if they get in and they're playing hot, like in years past where it's like one or two teams when they get going, they can play spoiler. I think we got a few of them this year. That's what I was looking at when I was watching these games this weekend.
And we'll save it for the end, but that team's in Los Angeles.
So what we got on deck, Ravens, Niners. We're going to break that game down. It was the biggest game of the weekend. Chiefs, once again, they lose, this time to the Raiders. That's a sounding alarm for a lot of people. Are they in trouble? We'll touch on that. We're going to talk about the Dolphins Cowboys game. Very interesting, had a lot of implications. And then we're going to get into a Super Bowl contender rankings here, where Tyson and I are each going to give our tier ones, our tier twos, and go through the best of the rest that we think can actually compete for the Super Bowl this season. Before we get into that, like, subscribe, and share the show. If you're watching on YouTube, smash that like button. Listen in podcast form. Please rate and review. It goes a long way to helping us out. Let's quit wasting time. We got to get to this, man. Ravens, I mean, they just smoked the Niners, man. They smoked them. They were more physical. They were faster. Their defense was better, and their quarterback was much better. What are you taking away from this game?
Their defense is freaky. Like I texted you that they might be the most well built like unit for this version of football. Like the term organized chaos was thrown around a little bit last night. I think in the broadcast, maybe that was just around the Christmas table at my house. But the way they fly to the football is crazy, and they were lucky a few times in the game. Like when Roquan Smith or Patrick Cleveland kind of bail out of the middle of the field or of a zone. Other teams, when that happens, that's 15, 20 yards for the 49ers. They're going to keep marching. With the Baltimore Ravens, when Kittle or Debo or Ayuk would make those catches, all of a sudden there's 4 guys that weren't even in the picture now are around the football. A lot of good things to be said about the Baltimore Ravens offense as well, but I think the discussion starts with that defense because for as much as you and I were all over Cleveland early in the year, we've come around to Baltimore being the best defense, and they just did it against a team that's killing everybody.
Yeah, I think that's a great point. And by metrics, and we say, EPA per play, Browns negative 0.16, Ravens negative 0.13. So Browns have an advantage there. They have fewer success rate percentage. Yada, yada, yada. Those are two of the best defenses, if not the two best defenses in the NFL. We happen to like the Ravens. I think they've had a better test of teams, and they've just exceeded expectations going in on the road against the 49ers, like you said, against this offense that has been killing everybody. Here's what was impressive to me. Mike McDonald, the defensive coordinator for the Ravens, this is his second year since coming in from Michigan. He continues to grow. He is impressive. I think he's going to get a head coaching job very quickly. But John Harbaugh continues to prove why he's one of the elite coaches in this league. No matter what happens, the Ravens have their identity. They're going to play hard. They're going to play physical. And they've shifted from the Flacco Ravens, where they were doing whatever they were doing under Joe Flacco, kind of high flying over the top, to this new let's go ground game with Lamar and let him kind of run around and figure it out. And it's been seamless because he's such a great coach. Every single time, Tyson, these big moments, it feels like the Ravens have a special teams advantage because he comes from that background. He's a special teams coach. How many times did the Niners make mistakes on special teams that bit them in the ass? And it's those little details that we always talk about with a Shanahan coach team. Oh, deciding to punt it in this situation when you're like, man, really? Oh, this little thing happened here. This little thing happened here. Missed field goal. Oh, no, that's something on special teams that came back to bite them. That's not the story in this one, but that was prevalent in one of the reasons why they got smoked.
And I think, we'd be a little bit remiss if we didn't mention Todd Monken and the offense. Speaking of McDonald and Harbaugh as a whole, I think one of his strengths is hiring good people, good coaches around him. They've had great people in that building for quite a while on the coaching side of things. We were a little unsure about Todd Monken. Mm-hmm. Brad, one thing I noticed last night when I was watching the game, they're running – it's like watching a different team week over week. Like the way that they're attacking these defenses, they're the only ones in the NFL with that advantage. Because last night it was more of the kind of OG, if you will, Lamar Jackson, where, look, man, I'm not sitting back here. I'm out. Like, I'm gone, and then I'm going to try to make a play. And it wasn't always, the runs. I know he finished with 40-something yards, but the 135-yarder, that felt like 2017. They're like morphing into whatever version of an offense can beat the defense that's in front of them. And that's something that no other team in the NFL can do right now. And typically, Kansas City figured out a way to do it last year, or the Patriots could always figure out a way to do it. Those are the teams that are the scariest, because when San Francisco's offense wasn't working last night, Brad, they just kept having to ram their head into the wall.
Yeah, McCaffrey was good again. Of course, he's going to be able to get his if he stays healthy. There's no question about it. My thing is this for the Niners: there's going to be people talking about Brock Purdy. Oh, he sucks and this and that. I still think he's a solid quarterback, but we're going from one extreme to the other here. He was either the best thing since Joe Montana we've ever seen, right? Because look at his advanced numbers. This is crazy. To no, now he's just a system guy. I think he's been in between. That's what we've said. He's a really good quarterback that operates in this offense at a high level. Yeah. When he makes mistakes and he turns the ball over, that's where you look back to. Remember when Jimmy Garoppolo was turning the ball over? Oh, it looked pretty bad too. We can get that with Brock Purdy sometimes. This offense is going to be fine. They ran into a buzzsaw in the Ravens, who just came out, and once things started rolling, they got on him, and they got him quick. My concern is, honestly, for this Niners football team, did anybody see what happened when Trent Williams went out of the game? Yes. Holy smokes, that line turned into a turnstile. It was terrible. So if they get banged up, Tyson, they're in big trouble.
Absolutely. It's a major bummer to see Trent Williams go down, just knowing, there's probably 2 or 3 offensive linemen in the NFL that when they're not on the field, everybody in America is like, well, this is going to look different. And if you're listening to Brad say that Purdy is excellent at running the system and you're upset about that, if we said so many times, there's 30 system quarterbacks in the NFL. There's Pat Mahomes, there's Josh Allen, and there's 30 guys who execute a system. It's okay to be the top tier of that. That's football, and that's what it is. Sometimes the system doesn't work. And to be honest with you, I think San Francisco might have needed a little bit of a reset, because it was reaching the point where everybody in the world had crowned these guys as Super Bowl champions in Week 15. And we're not saying they can't win the Super Bowl at all. In fact, we're going to get into a tier list a little bit later here. But we're also saying that, hey, it's the NFL. And when you play really good teams like the Baltimore Ravens, just because you beat the best teams in your conference doesn't mean that you're going to match up well necessarily with everybody.
Yeah, and closing note for me here, the Ravens, once again, super impressive. I thought their offense, after losing Keaton Mitchell, who has been a dynamite, explosive back for them, they just go back to the guys, Gus Edwards, he's got miles on him. He's been hurt. Justice Hill, journeyman. And it didn't matter against this Ravens defense. Now, did they run all over him? I'm sorry, against this 49ers defense. Did the Ravens run all over him? No. In fact, what they did, to your point with Monken, guys, they're weak in the secondary. If we can just buy time and not let Bosa and Chase Young and everybody come off the edge and sack Lamar, we're going to have an advantage here, even though we don't consider the Ravens wide receiving core that impressive. Zay Jones is a beast, man. And that was our guy.
Flowers.
That dude is Zay Flowers is a beast. That dude's been impressive. What he did to that 49ers defense, my goodness. And that's a rookie. He's only going to get better. He elevates this receiving core. And if he's going to do that and they're going to target him and feature him, what happens when Mark Andrews comes back? What happens when Isaiah Likely now has confidence? Like this offense, Tyson, we may be seeing them peak at the right time.
It's about who's hottest, not about who's best.
So how about somebody who's in big trouble? The Kansas City Chiefs, all we heard, right? And so we talked about this, Tyson. I want to take our listeners and viewers back to the beginning of the season when it looked like things were the same. And we're like, well, we don't want to necessarily come out and say, hey, this looks different because you still got Patrick Mahomes. You still have Travis Kelce. It's still Andy Reid. I think it's safe to say right now, we got 2 games left in the regular season. This thing has not turned around. In fact, it's gotten worse. What is your sense of what is going on in Kansas City?
Well, I think I saw something. This is going to be Mahomes' worst record as a starter since he's taken over, right? And then, what they can finish with 11, I think, is the most amount of wins. Which there's 27 teams in the league right now. I'd be pretty pumped about 11 wins. The offense stinks. That's the problem. That's it. And the other, the thing that kind of got swept under the rug a little bit yesterday, I think, because the offense stinks. It's a fun fact that the Raiders didn't complete a pass after the first quarter. That's a problem if you're going to go into the playoffs and that's the way you're playing defense. That was Zamir White, folks. That wasn't Josh Jacobs. That was Zeus White, the 4th-round running back out of Georgia that everyone tried to talk themselves into and then buried. Turns out maybe he's a good player. AP, he's going to keep the job. That's what we're stamping it right now. Bottom line, dude, they should have never lost this game to the Raiders. Part of it is you don't beat somebody 40 times in a row. Eventually, they're just going to come in and ruin your Christmas. It just kind of feels, Brad, there's something going on in 2023 because some of these offenses that we're used to excelling, some of these players we're used to seeing do really well, it hasn't been their year.
I'm, I guess, not necessarily shocked, Tyson. I'm surprised that it's taken this long. Mahomes looks lost. Let's be honest here. Everybody wants to point the finger at everybody else. Did anybody think Mahomes was good yesterday? Because I thought he was a major reason why that offense is bad. And he's running around and, everybody's like, well, the offensive line was horrible. He has to run for his life. Welcome to the NFL, man. Do you know how many other quarterbacks would have loved you have your situation? And now all of a sudden, because your offensive line, because you took a massive contract and Kelsey's getting paid a lot, and now your offensive line is starting to pay the price for it. Oh, well, Mahomes has to run around. The line's not very good. Welcome to Matt Stafford's career. Welcome to these other guys, what they have to deal with. This is the reality of the NFL. Joe Burrow, Josh Allen, welcome to this portion of your career here because you're going to have to get used to this. Rashee Rice is a 1. I think Travis Kelce, Tyson, we're on the twilight, man. I think he's a 1-1.
You think he's a 1-1? Okay.
I do. I think he'd be more clear of a 1-1 if they had a 2, a 3, or a 4, or even a semblance of that. Because right now that receiving core is bad. So I think there's plenty of blame to point around for everything. The biggest thing, Tyson, and I'll throw this back to you. We said what happens when Travis Kelce's not in this offense. He's not in this offense, man. He may be out there. This is not Travis Kelce. He looks slow. He can't separate. And teams know, hey, if we can just do a little bracket coverage. This offensive line's not good enough. Mahomes can do his running around thing, but we just stay on Kelce. And we throw maybe a 50% chance over at Rashee Rice. Are you going to trust these other receivers to catch the football? I think that's what's happening right now. It's a schematic. It's a talent regression. And Mahomes hasn't played his best football.
Do you think it's a Travis Kelce hit the cliff, or do you think there's something else going on? Do you think he's banged up, or because he said he's been a half step slow all year. It just didn't feel okay to say out loud.
I think it's both. I think he's banged up, and I think when you're older and you got as much mileage as he's had, the getting banged up turns into you're hurt, and getting hurt turns into injuries. Yeah. So I think that's what's happening.
Well, he's only in 455 commercials, so he'll be all right after football whenever that happens. We hope it's not anytime soon, but that's, I think, reason like 1A if you were going to put it. Also, nobody has mentioned, at least that I've heard, it was all fun and games that Eric Bieniemy was the offensive coordinator and he doesn't call the plays and he doesn't do anything. It's all Andy Reid. And it's a little bit, maybe it's coincidence. Maybe there's a reason that the offense looks like this when Bieniemy leaves. It's not like
Mm.
Washington's lighting the world on fire, but it does feel like it's getting a little stale in Kansas City.
Matt Nagy's back. I know there's a lot of people, especially in Chicago, that don't like the guy and think he stinks. I think, maybe there's something to that there. Is that something that's going on? Here's the reality of the situation. I think it's safe to say the Chiefs are in trouble. I mean, Romo's talking about they're going to have to go play their first road game in Kansas City's history. Tyson, they might not get out in the first round. They look bad. Defense is still good. Now, I'll put it this way. Everybody's talking about, well, Kansas City has a top 5 defense. If their offense figures out, they're going to be really good. Based on DVOA, they're number 9. That's not quite as good as people have billed them to be. And I think that's scary if you're talking about Kansas City, because if the defense, isn't quite as elite as you're talking about and you're relying on this offense who's been pretty poor to respond and come up with certain things, I think that does not bode well if we're talking about a team that should be competing for a Super Bowl championship.
I'm excited to see where you have them in your cheer list. That's all I'm really thinking about right now. I'm like, where's he going to put these guys?
Man, I'm still figuring out. I'm not going to lie to you. I'm in between two. Okay, last one before we get into the tier list. Dolphins squeak by the Cowboys. So this is a big game for a lot of different reasons. One, we wanted to see if the Dolphins were legit. They hadn't beaten a team coming in with the winning record all season.
How much stock do you put into that stuff when people are saying
a lot?
Like, because you do? Okay.
I do, because I think there's a different mentality. Guys coming in, this team's coming in, they got a winning record. They're good on paper. They look good. And, we're playing somebody who's 2-8. We should blow them out. Like, I do put stock into that.
I take issue with it a little bit when a lot of those games are early in the year. Like if you beat a team in week 1, then you haven't beaten anybody with a winning record. They might go 16-1. But yeah, no, it's a big deal, and that was a big storyline.
Yeah, and on the other side, for the Cowboys, Tyson, we know their road struggles. That was a big thing that we talked about in our preview. We know that similarly for them, when they step up in class, besides that Eagles win, which is a division win, again, for us who have been doing this for a long time, talking about it, division wins are a little bit different than other ones when you got to go play somebody else because of familiarity. What did this game say to you, either side? Are the Cowboys frauds? I know people use that a ton now. Are the Dolphins now proven that they can compete? What'd you take away from this?
I think these are 2 good football teams. That was my main takeaway, and it was funny to read or listen to every reaction in the opposite way, because Miami should have blown them out, or that screenshot going around of Tony Pollard not scoring on the goal line. Those were issues long before this. Like, those were issues we knew about the Dallas Cowboys and the Miami Dolphins. I don't think really anything changed for me. CeeDee Lamb seems to be the only one that shows up, though, when they leave home. Like, he seems like he's the only one ready to get off the bus for this offense, which is an issue. Tua Tagovailoa is so much better than he gets ever any credit for, and it's funny. All year, all we talked about Herbert and the Chargers and their struggles, and then it's Tyreek Hill should be MVP, or can you believe what Achane just did and all this stuff? And he never gets really any love, but he's always pushed to the side in these storylines. How many times this dude got to just insert himself into the middle of the conversation to be taken seriously? This is a top 5 quarterback in the NFL. He is.
Dude, he's been awesome.
Maybe top 6. Top 5 is in my top 5 has about 10 players in it. So let's be very clear there.
That's just like the NBA rankings.
Right.
It's like top 10. It's like, well, dude, you got 30 guys in there, so somebody's got to get bumped. Well, to give you some support here, total EPA, Brock Purdy number 1 overall, Josh Allen number 2, Dak Prescott number 3, Tua Tagovailoa number 4 at 85.3, and then 85.3 expected points added, and Jalen Hurts 84.3. Points per play, Tua Tagovailoa 0.17. That's better than Patrick Mahomes has been this season. His passing expected points added, Brock Purdy's number 1, 131.3. Tua's number 2, 122.8. What he gets banged on is his rushing, and that's not even really what he does. So, like,
who cares?
A bunch of these guys that are getting added, Allen, Purdy, and Prescott, they've got positive rush EPA. Tua's got negative. So if we're just looking at EPA in general, Tua's got the top. I mean, he's up there with Allen, really. So, listen, I agree with you. And I'm the leader of Tuanon. We've said that. Like as long as I'm breathing, Tuanon lives. Like that's the reality of the situation. So I'm a long believer in Tua Tagovailoa. Hits everything in timing and rhythm. I think the pairing with Mike McDaniel is exactly what you want. Is this team good enough on the defensive side of the ball? Can they rise to the occasion, rushing the football in big spots? That's my concern. That's my question. I thought this gave me more clarity against the Cowboys defense that got embarrassed against the Bills. We're going to come in with a little bit more heart. Thought the Dolphins, man, listen, they got off to an early start. It got stagnant. They got punched in the mouth a couple possessions, thought they were going to blow it. They go back down and score the game winner. Great drive by them. That told me a lot about them.
And to come back from the Titans game a couple weeks ago, where it was like, oh, this team might not just be resilient enough to win in the playoffs if something like this happened. And now it was a good team doing that to them, and they bounced
Right.
back. I don't have any real negative things to take away from this game for Dallas. I don't know if that's where you wanted to take this next, but to me, it was just it's two good football teams playing football the day before Christmas. It's like it was going to be a fun game. It was more physical than I anticipated.
Yeah, me too. I knew the Cowboys were going to come in and try to out physical the Dolphins. I was surprised the Dolphins were able to live up to that and really deliver it back. I mean, they didn't get pushed around. They pushed the Cowboys around for a little bit offensively and through the line and trenches. I'll say this about the Cowboys. I'm concerned about their lack of pass rush right now. They are generating nothing. Like Tua was comfortable. And if that's going to happen in the playoffs, that scares me. And then once again, the Cowboys go on the road and lose. Like they cannot win away from home. I'll say right now, that's going to affect my tier ranking. That's going to affect how I view them as a contender because right now, because of this loss, with the Eagles playing the Arizona Cardinals and then the Giants again, it'd be hard pressed to say the Cowboys are going to win this division.
You're forgetting about Johnny Gans, man, coming back to town.
Okay. Anything you want to say on that or do you want to get into the contender series?
Let's go. Let's go into the contenders.
Let's do it. So I'm going to tee up Tyson here. He's going to go number one, give his tier one list. And of course, I'll give mine after. But basically, so what the deal is, we're going to go as it stands right now with 2 games left in the regular season, right? So it's like Mahomes gets hurt. If Lamar gets hurt, obviously that changes things. We got 2 games left in the regular season coming off a huge weekend of football. We're going to give the tiers, our teams in tier one, who we think one of these teams is going to win the Super Bowl. We think those are the best teams in the league. One of these teams will win the Super Bowl. We're going to go to our second tier. If everything goes right, if everything is perfect, like the Eagles with Nick Foles, whatever you want to name, some other crazy runs. If everything goes right, you can win it there. Maybe the Rams a few years ago, just based on where they're at. And then best of the rest. Maybe they can play spoiler for a couple things and shake things up, maybe help out some tier 2s. So that's what we have going here. So Tyson, let's start with your tier 1. Who is in there for you?
It's pretty small. It's the Baltimore Ravens and it's the San Francisco 49ers. And to me, it's pretty clear. I know that the Niners are in danger of losing the 1 seed. I'm not sure how much that's going to matter for this version of this football team. The way they play, I think, can travel just about anywhere. We've already seen them show up in Philadelphia and what that looked like right earlier this season. I don't have many true concerns here. I do just think it's with the Niners being injured. That's something that could maybe take them out. But I'm not about to sit here in week 15 or week 16 and say there's one team in the NFL that can win the Super Bowl. I got to go 2.
I think you're right, man. I mean, for me, I'm the same boat. It's Ravens and Niners. Those are the 2 best teams to me. Number 1 and number 2 in DVOA. The defense is number 2 in DVOA for the Ravens. Their offense is number 4. San Francisco's defense, DVOA, number 4. Their offense, number 1. Like, to me, these are just the best teams on both sides of the ball. They're faster than everybody. They're more physical. Their quarterback play in their own system are extremely elite, and they have elite skill position players. To me, this seems like we're getting a rematch. We're getting a rematch from a few years ago. It's just a different coach on the sidelines. Shanahan. It's not John Harbaugh's brother, Jim, over there. So I think right now, if I'm looking at it, I think a couple other teams, I want to see some things in the next 2 weeks. I can see them winning the Super Bowl. And as I look right now, those 2 look like the 2 teams that are going to compete for the Super Bowl.
Yeah. And I apologize for the people listening in for Brad's typing fingers, but I got a big tier 2. I think tier 2 is massive. And this is just for me. Because the way the qualifier you put on there about if everything goes right, these teams can win the Super Bowl. I'm going with the Dolphins, the Lions. I think if everything goes right for the Eagles, they can win the Super Bowl. I think if everything goes right for the Buffalo Bills, they can win the Super Bowl. And I think if everything goes right for the Dallas Cowboys, they can win the Super Bowl. And it all depends on matchups and things like that. But right now, I think there are certainly stronger teams than others within this tier list. And the reason that Buffalo makes it is the same reason that Kansas City's been on the list every year, but this one for me, where it was like they just might have the best guy at the end of the game. Because right now, are you trusting Patrick Mahomes and this Chiefs offense to go down and win a 2-minute drive, to win the AFC Championship game on the road? I don't know if I am with this offense. I think that Patrick Mahomes can do it. I just don't know if I believe in everybody else. Now, if the flags stay in the pockets, that might be one thing. And if the refs start throwing them around, as we've seen, it could be a little bit different. I think Philadelphia might be the weakest team on this list at this exact moment. But again, the offense scored 33. They gave away 15 free ones yesterday. Those things are like the pick six is a little bit unlucky with Dallas Goedert falling down, but Alama Zacchaeus running backwards, basically tackling Boston Scott. Everyone else is like that's a meme and everything. That's got to be a little bit on coaching, brother. Like that's the real concern. Dallas might outscore everybody. Detroit would be fun, and I don't really want to talk too much longer.
Okay. Man, so I'm pretty similar to you. So my tier 2, so I have the same amount of teams. I got a couple different ones. I'll explain why we get into the best of the rest. So I got Dolphins, Browns, Eagles, Chiefs, Bills. Browns, their defense with Joe Flacco. This offense is
Wouldn't that be
explosive.
awesome? Wouldn't that be awesome?
It's crazy. It's night and day. I mean, this is why in the NFL they're terrified to hand out these guaranteed huge contracts because they thought they hit a home run with Deshaun Watson. They got some guy off his couch who people for years argued if he was elite or not, and his offense is better than anything that Deshaun Watson's done since he's been in Cleveland. Just like that. Browns, I think, with that defense, with what Joe Flacco is doing right now, I think if everything goes right for them, there's no way that defense doesn't travel. Joe Flacco has been experienced. He's good. I'm putting the Chiefs in there. I'm sorry. Andy Reid, Patrick Mahomes, anytime that they're together, they have an opportunity to win the Super Bowl. The reason why they're not in tier 1 is because something's off there. But they have a chance. Everything goes right. Their defense comes up with timely turnovers. Mahomes turns things around. All of a sudden, the wide receivers start catching the ball. I think they're in there. And then the Bills, come on. Josh Allen's playing out of his mind. You're number 3 in DVOA. This offense is awesome in advanced stats. Like, they're good. I think they're going to prove it. And once they get in, they're one of the scariest teams to face. The Dolphins, I think similarly, if this defense can kind of start figuring things out down the stretch, it's going to be scary. This offense, just get healthy and let's see what we can do. And Eagles, I was listening to Colin Cowherd today, and he made me kind of open my eyes a little bit because we've been down as Eagles fans. So, like, maybe we're too close to the forest to see the trees, or too close to the trees to see the forest, I think is the actual term, metaphor there. We looked at the team last year, like they just smoked everybody. Tyson, they had narrow victories over Colts, who were with Jeff Saturday, the Bears, who were horrendous, and a few other teams, but yet we propped them up. They're going to be one game worse this year than last year. They played much better quarterbacks, much better teams. And if they just don't stumble the last 2 games, they're going to have a home playoff game. Then they're going to have one opportunity to get back into the NFC Championship game. I think it's a pretty good team. So if everything runs through it, I think they have an opportunity to get into the Super Bowl and win it if everything goes right.
It does feel like vibes are off. That's like my number one issue with Philadelphia right now. And then I'm the best of the rest here. We're not going to dump in everybody. So if you're a Seahawks fan and you get upset that you didn't get a mention, or a Colts fan, that's on us. These are the teams that I think, and by shake things up, really what I'm looking at is like, can these teams make a conference championship game? Can they win 2 games in the playoffs if everything goes right? Obviously, number one on that list for me is going to be the Kansas City Chiefs. You explained that very well. I just don't think that they can win it all this year, which is why I dump them in my tier 3. Bad, real close to them to me is the Los Angeles Rams. There's something going on. Like, this is, you talk about peaking at the right time. I think that the Rams have a legitimate shot against everybody above them in the NFC playoffs, even on the road. Matt Stafford is doing Matt Stafford things. And then I think the Cleveland Browns are the last one here for me. Ideally, I'm wearing the Eagles hat. I got the Eagles stuff behind me. But if they don't win the Super Bowl, my number one want would just be for Joe Flacco to beat the Ravens. I don't even want him to win the Super Bowl. I just think it'd be hilarious if he went on the road, won another game in Baltimore. This is, I think these are your three real spoilers this year, and it feels weird to have the Chiefs as a spoiler, but let's swap the logo with somebody
Mm.
else that had the number 9 off or defense in the league and had, things to be really encouraged about on offense, but also like you're left scratching your head a little bit. Then you might, have the last 4-week version of the Cleveland Browns. And that's kind of where I'm at. And that's not an insult to Kansas City. Cleveland's a hell of a football team. You know, who would have thought Joe Flacco would have got Kevin Stefanski to go from 15-1 to the favorite for coach of the year within, a month?
Yeah, seriously. Seriously. So I like how you put that there. And I'm just got a couple teams. We flopped ours. So I got the Lions, the Cowboys, and the Rams. And I'm with you on the Rams. So I'm going to talk on that point. We have Sean McVay. This might be his best coaching job he's ever done.
Yeah.
From where we were expecting this Rams team to be in the beginning of the season, with Cooper Kupp getting banged up, with Matt Stafford and this offensive line not gelling, not meshing, then he gets a little bit banged up. This defense, we got new faces. We traded away Jalen Ramsey. We did this, we did that. Oh my goodness, they're going to get smoked. To where we're at now with this offense looking scary, like they got a real shot here. They can shake things up. They could, if they beat San Francisco in Week 18, talk about shaking up the playoffs up already. Cowboys. Now, here's why I have them here and not in tier 2. They can't win on the road, and they're going to have to go win 3 road games now. If they don't win that division, that's tough. That's really, really tough for the Cowboys to do, and they're going to have to go outdoors. I just don't believe in it. I don't trust. I don't trust McCarthy. I don't trust Dak to do that, and I don't trust anything with that operation to get that done. And then the Lions, maybe this is unfair. They're awesome. They got to play outdoors. They're toast. They're toast. It's going to be cold. It's going to be wet. It's going to be East Coast football. I'm just not sure that this defense is going to be good enough to hold up in that. And if the offense has to play shootout to catch up, I don't think they can do it in those conditions. So I think it's more unfair to the Lions than anything here because they're a really good football team. We love them. We love Dan Campbell. You and I were on that train early. And for me not to have their backs here, it feels treasonous. But listen, we got to call it how we see it. And that's how I feel about this Lions team this year.
And the flip side is, the concerns you have about both those teams are valid. If the Rams are who we think they are, like one of these two teams could end up hosting a playoff game at some point. We don't really know what's going to happen there. I don't think that Tampa Bay is going to, like, if they win a game, I wouldn't be shocked, but I'm not, penciling that in. Jacksonville, you got to be over that experience right now. Like, you just have to. Indianapolis is a fun story. We just don't really see it. And then, it's Seattle as the remaining one, and we're a little bit more out on the Seahawks. We have been all year than everybody else. But right now, I think there's probably you have your top 2 solidified. I think you have a handful of guys that might be able to win it if everything broke correctly, and then you got your spoilers. But it's still not crystallized, man. There's a lot of open spots here with 2 weeks to play. There's 3 in the NFC, and I believe 5 open spots as far as seeding goes in the AFC. So it's going to get really, really tight, and it's going to make our Thursday show where we preview our bets and our best bets and our spreads and all that stuff a little bit more important to listen to. Brad, gosh darn it, we had a bounce back, man.
I know, dude. Finally, I will say I'm still going to bitch and complain about a couple things that happened this weekend. I'm legitimately shocked that 2 weeks in a row I couldn't get the gambling gods to help me out. But bounce back, thank you. We needed it. We're going to finish strong, Tyson, for sure. So where can they find those plays? We're going to play anything early in the week.
It'll be in the Chalkboard app. It's in the App Store, Google Play, wherever you download your apps. The group name is ISWIS, presents the Roundtable Bets. Type that in. We'll let you write in. It's free. We got some pretty big UFC cards coming up. There's always soccer. There's always sports going on, people, and there's always fun parlays to be played or singles. We don't care if you're betting a penny or if you're in there throwing around $1,000 bets like it's nothing. We're just in there to have a good time.
And in the meantime, like I said off the top, please like, subscribe, and share the show. Like if you're watching on YouTube, smash that like button on the way out. If you're listening in podcast form, if you haven't already, send us a 5-star review, please. That helps us out. If you hate us, just don't rate us. Just say, or give us 5-star, get our attention, and say something about how we're dumb or whatever the case may be. ugly, whatever it is. So yeah, go ahead and do that. That really helps us out if you could. We really appreciate it. And if you want to stay connected with us, follow us on our socials, X, Instagram, and TikTok. It's all the same handle at ISWIS_pod. So like Tyson alluded to, we got a big week of shows here. So later in the week, we're going to do our preview episode for week 17 in the NFL, where we go through gambling, talk about what's at stake, things like that. Also, midweek, Tyson, we're about to have the big college football games, bowl season, New Year's Six, college football playoff. So we're gonna do some previews, some
FCS
in-depth
National
stuff.
Championship. Oh wait, no, that's the 7th.
That's the 7th. So
dude, does Christmas mess up your internal timeline as well?
Every time, dude.
Yeah.
My entire sports calendar just gets screwed up.
No, I have no idea what day it is. They're lucky I showed up to work.
We hope everybody had a great Christmas again on the way out. We do appreciate it. We'll be back talking bowl games, talking college football playoffs, and all of that good stuff. So we'll talk to you then. Peace.